Hey YouTube, welcome back. I've got another build here for you. This past weekend was another one of the weekend tournaments that Vision GL hosts here on Twitch. This was the Beastmaster weekend, and the 3 required skills, we have to choose one of them, were Stormcrows, Summon Raptor, and Upheaval. So I wanted to try something out with Stormcrows, and I was combing through the archives of YouTube trying to find out which build caught my eye, what kinds of things you can do with Stormcrows, and I found a build from Dread, from Epoch builds here on YouTube, and he had tried something very early on when Stormcrows were announced, and he was using a lethal concentration, which has not too much lines of text on it. It's got about 200% increased minion damage. It's got some things that don't apply to you as a Beastmaster, some skeleton rogue things, but the most important line of text here for me was minions leech 8% of poison damage as health, and it happens to be a spear, and a spear as a Beastmaster, if you're playing poison, means that you can maybe try some aspect of the Viper, scale some Viper effect on your idols, your helmet, and your body armor, and then use Serpent Strike in order to get a handful of buffs for yourself and a little bit of damage as well. As we played, there was a couple other big brain ideas that we tried that didn't quite pan out. For a while there, after we dropped a Bastion of Honor, we were trying a Hazelroot plus Bastion combo, which meant that my Stormcrows didn't actually have any leech at all, which wasn't really an issue up into and including Empowered Monoliths, where I was doing maybe 100 to 120 corruption. I didn't feel like I really needed minion leech for that portion of the game, because Warcry also heals my minions, and then monsters die quick enough because you have plenty of damage, and the minions or the monsters aren't posing much of an issue to you. This whole weekend was kind of a story of, where do I get minion leech from? Where do I get my own defense from? Can my minions survive? How much damage can they do? How much damage am I supposed to do? Do I use a Bastion? Do I use a Titan Heart? Do they need leech? Do they need AoE? Do I need something else to augment my AoE? And stumbling through all of those questions, honestly, it's one of the reasons that I like these weekend tournaments, because it gives me an opportunity to try something that I have a good idea of the framework and how it's supposed to work, but like, how is it really going to work in practice? How is it going to work when I'm pushing arena to like 100, 200, 300, 400 waves, depending on how high I can get? By the time that we were 231 waves in, my minions were dying to everything constantly. They were not alive for more than 5 seconds or so at a time. I did my final push with a lethal concentration and a Titan Heart, which meant that my minions had 8% of poison damage versus health, and that I had my 15% less damage taken from my chest piece, the Titan Heart there. For arena, this is not a good build. For Julra, for the Temporal Sanctum, the first dungeon, I would not recommend this build to you either. Poison Crows, I thought they were going to work out very well. They did not perform particularly well. So with that said, let me show you what decisions I made during this tournament here. And maybe if you're trying something like this in the future, you can build on this and see if you can figure out some different combination of things that work better for you. So first things first, this is the character here. We have about 2,200 life. We have a handful of unique items. We have Artor's Legacy for an extra crow. We have 5 crows here because during the tournament itself, we were running with a bear as well. So I played Serpent Strike a long time ago, and I enjoyed having a self-damage Serpent Strike build along with Bear. Bear taunts things, which is great. He also has a good chunk of AoE. When he gets hit, he has a retaliation thing built in. And then like you can pop your taunt, enemies attack him. He has excellent AoE to clear a pack of monsters. And you know, one of the things that Stormcrows was lacking on for me was AoE clear. So let's go to the skills first. We're going to talk about Stormcrows, and we're going to talk about a node that really underperformed. So first things first, with Stormcrows, we have a handful of nodes in the top left of the skill tree. Sometimes I had 20 skill points. Sometimes I had 22 points to play with, depending on which chess piece I was using. But if I had more points, I would spec into these nodes up here. These are very, very strong nodes in terms of multiplicative damage, assuming that you are attacking all the time. At the advice of the YouTube video that I watched from Epoch Builds, was to take these nodes down here. So this is 10 points. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is technically a more damage multiplier, but it's very small. And it brings us all the way to Thunderstruck. So it says the basic lightning attack, which is what I'm using to scale my damage, has a chance to chain up to 2 additional times. And it's 5 points, 5% per point. This was such a heavy point investment and really not worthwhile. Like, you want to take it because you want AoE. You kind of want not to take it so you can take better nodes up here, or maybe take dodge nodes, or maybe you could spec into Thundering Strike to make this your AoE instead, the Crow Storm. There's some tension with like, what are you using for single target and what are you using for AoE? If this node were changed to be like maybe 3 points or 4 points, or maybe not quite so far away in terms of investment to get there, if you could invest into this node and get a minimum of 1 chain for each attack, I think that would go a long way to make Stormcrows feel much better than they are right now. I took this. I did not like it at all. It's so lackluster. So I did multiple runs through the arena, up to like 200 waves or so, up to like actually about 180 waves, trying various setups. I was trying it with Bastion, with Lethal Concentration, with a rare chest piece, with a Titan Heart, taking these nodes here, adding Bear, subtracting Bear. I tried different combinations of these things. Nothing really cut it. The next 2 skills, we can talk about these because they very often go together. I don't have any leech for myself, which means I was relying on healing effect, which is kind of nice, honestly. We talked about Stormcrows dying very often, not really having good leech because you're playing a damage over time build. But Warcry made the healing, or I guess it turns your Warcry and your own healing effect into healing for your allies. So when you're shouting, when you're next to your allies, every 5 seconds from my Warcry here, because I have no cooldown cover speed, heals all of your minions as well. So just doing corruption, just pushing around in the monolith, this was totally fine for keeping my Stormcrows alive. I was doing up to like 125 corruption. I'm sure it would carry you for a bit beyond that as well. So for Warcry Maelstrom, we're using Warcry to get some attack speed because we want to be attacking very often with Serpent Strike. We'll get to that in a moment. Then we also have 4 Maelstrom stacks, which means 4 times 2 because we have cooldown here. And then we're running around with 8 stacks of Maelstrom. What does that mean? It means that Maelstrom is basically spec'd just about the same way in almost every single build when I use Maelstrom. So we're using it for utility. We have duration. We have frenzy and haste for ourselves, just to give us a nice mobility as we run around. We have some extra healing down here. If we have 6 times 8 is what, 46, 42, something like that. Don't make me do math. Some kind of healing effect here per second. And then if we get 150 healing effect, that turns into maybe 110, 120 healing per second, along with the burst of healing that Warcry gives us while we are yelling every 4 seconds and becoming invulnerable. So this combination, plus a bit of healing effect, goes a long way to make up for my lack of leech in other places. So that felt totally fine. I like it. The second to last skill is Serpent Strike. I wasn't sure if I wanted to spec Serpent Strike or not, because there is a possibility of using Summon Frenzy Totem. Summon Frenzy Totem would give your minions Frenzy as well, which gives them some extra attack speed, and then you can scale that Frenzy effect, gives them extra resistances. I did try arena pushes with and without this, but I felt like I needed extra defense. I used Serpent Strike. This gives me a ton of dodge. Every time that you attack, and you scale attack speed, so you attack very often, for the past 4 seconds, you get flat dodge rating. When you have flat dodge rating like this, we also have flat dodge rating coming in from Maelstrom in the Sleet-footed node. We have some percent dodge rating in our mastery, and then maybe 1 suffix of the fox, the percent dodge rating somewhere in your gear, is a great way of building up like 50 or 60% chance to dodge when you're doing your 100 level monoliths, including arena. So the rest of this is just attack speed, attack speed, attack speed. We have some kill threshold up here, which feels great. But yeah, if you're interested in using Serpent Strike for damage, you're probably also taking these Nagasa Venom nodes. But otherwise, maybe just as much attack speed as possible. I found myself wanting to scale my own damage, so I spec'd 5 points into Serpent Strike. If you wanted to go full on into Companion, Aspect of the Viper, Poison build, you would just grab as much attack speed as possible. Or you would use an unspec'd Serpent Strike along with Frenzy Totem here. So the last skill, we can talk about this. The last skill we used was Summon Bear, and this is the skill that we ended up using in our final push in the arena, up to 230 waves. It was probably the best feeling portion of the build, which is a little funny, but let me walk you through it, right? So we have Aspect of the Viper. We also have Aspect of the Viper on all of our idols here. We have, let's see, 16, 20, 24, 15. So maybe about 90, maybe 85, 90% increased effect Aspect of the Viper. If you had LP on any of your uniques, or if you were using rare or exalted body armor, you would have Aspect of the Viper on your helmet and body armor as well. For Bear, every once in a while, you get to pop your taunt, which means enemies attack him. So you have some breathing room for yourself. Your crows aren't being attacked for that duration. And then the bear has excellent AoE as he retaliates and all of that poison chance that goes along with it. So that's actually really good. You don't even need Iterra's Blessing for Permataunt. That's not necessary. Just having him in the build by himself is an excellent way of dealing with the lack of AoE because you don't really have a good source of AoE on your Stormcrows. Let's talk about the master here. There's not going to be too much interesting going on because this is 50 levels worth of defense, and then ultimately, once you get to level 51, you finally get to start speccing into offensive modes. So we have some life, some resistance, some life for ourselves, and then some berserker nodes. We fill these in around like level 85 or 90. We have 0 points in shaman, 20 points into druid, give us some attack and cast speed for our minions, which is great for us. It gives us a little bit of endurance. It gives us strength and attunement, which should be noted. Strength and attunement both scale health and damage from Stormcrows. So having that hybrid node in the Druid Mastery feels very good for us. And then just 1 point into healing effect, minion healing, so that we can transition up to this node here. If you don't like this node, maybe you can go life, but these are some filler points that just get us to where we want to be. For Beastmaster, the vast majority of this is defense. And then we also have Aspect of the Viper. So let's go over this. We have defense, 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 defense. I guess this is defense. This is defense, defense. And then here's Aspect of the Viper. Okay. It's a good overview so far. We also have 8 points into the chase. This is minion cast speed, minion attack speed. For our gearing portion, I want you to know, let me move my camera real quick. I want you to know that we had no shortage of itemization choices for this weekend tournament. We had 0 LP items across the board. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything. But we have chess pieces with a bunch of life and +2 to Stormcrows and Aspect of the Viper effect. We have Bastion of Honor. We have Orion's Eye. We have our Lethal Concentration. We have Snathia's Dying Breath, which I was using for a bit because it's actually pretty good. We had Hazel Root. We tried Hazel Root and then attacking with Swipe. And then Swipe is a physical skill for Hazel Root. So it tries to cast Thorn Shield on yourself. And we spec'd Spriggan for him when we did this. And he gave us max armor. And we were super tanky using a Hazel Root and a Bastion. But my minions were dying. So we ended up dropping Hazel Root and using the Lethal Concentration only because of the last line of text. Minions leech 8% poison damage as hell. Let's talk about the non-unique items, just so you have an idea of what I was prioritizing, other than the increased effect of Aspect of the Viper. For our amulet here, Poison Res, Frailty, those are both great for us. Remember, we don't need Armor Shred because we're a damage over time build. Armor has nothing to do with damage over time, or any kind of damage over time. Healing effect is nice because healing effect scales our Warcry, which also scales how much we heal our minions. And then the Maelstrom stacks are also scaled by healing effect. This is what I'm using instead of Leech for my character. If I were a self-damaging Serpent Strike, I could use a Bleeding Heart. That would be an option as well. So here's the thing. I have 8% of poison damage leech here, and also 31% increased leech rate here. The fact that my Stormcrows were still dying embarrassingly quickly, I don't know what you need. It just seems like Stormcrows didn't quite have enough survivability to push beyond 230. Because again, while I was doing my arena push, my birds, once I resummoned them, would survive for about 5 seconds. So this leech ended up not working particularly well for me, even though they're crit immune, even though they have, presumably enough damage to push that kind of content. For our gloves, you would want to use, I think what you ideally want here is Julra gloves, which are Julra's Obsession, I believe is the name of them. It says all the stats on your gloves also apply to your minions, and then you would put cast speed on them as another way of making your minions deal damage faster. Just cast speed's a great thing to have. So again, my character had trouble farming tier 3 Julra in hardcore. I actually couldn't even kill tier 3 Julra in order to get those gloves. But that would be the idea for a build like this. The other option, if you were looking for a legendary thing, would be something like Raven's Rise. Raven's Rise gives +2 to level of spell minions. And then of course, you would just be able to spec into more of these more damage nodes in Stormcrow here. And then for our relic, we are looking for mana regeneration, healing effect, attunement, and strength. They're both fine for us because they scale the defenses of our minions. And then anything else that can fill in the rest of your suffixes for like resistances, endurance, and things like that. So for the idols, which is the last thing we'll talk about for the build, any Aspect of the Viper build will want similar looking idols. We're just looking for as much Aspect of the Viper effect as possible. So we have a 1x4, a 1x4, 1x3, 1x3. and then some extra life and resistances to fill in the rest of those gaps there. So these go up to 17, and these goes up to 25, which is, let's see, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. It's about 90%-ish is the maximum that you can get on your idols. But anything from like 80 to 85, 85 to 90 should be a good place in terms of how much increased Viper effect you can get. Remember, one of the reasons the Viper effect is so strong, if we look back at the Beastmaster skill tree, is that Viper effect not only gives you more chance to poison on hit, because it says a buff that grants chance to poison on hit and increased damage over time, but increased Viper effect also increases the poison effect that's granted by the node Rattlesnake. So if you're playing a Viper build, you really, really do want as much increased aspect of the Viper effect as possible across all your gear. So that about does it. I will provide a link in the description of this video to what Epoch builds, what Dread has done in the past. I liked the idea of the build a lot. Obviously, that's why I played it. But it didn't quite work out for me. I didn't like the leech. I didn't like the lack of AoE from Stormcrows. If there's something that you've done with Stormcrows that felt better than this, I want to know about it. If you have any questions about this build, about what I did, or maybe what I didn't like about it, you can always drop by twitch.tv/PeriodPig, ask questions here, or in the comment section of this YouTube video. So that's it. We did get first place, technically, even though there was only 4 people participating this weekend. But hopefully with the advent of 085, the new patch, and then someday, maybe multiplayer will come out, we'll have more people competing in these events as well. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.